when Deshaun Watson went out with the torn Achilles, obviously season-ending injury. They were in Cleveland. And as he went down with the injury and then sort of got carted off, the fans in Cleveland seemed to be cheering, or at least seemingly like celebratory about the fact that Deshaun Watson got injured. And, a lot of his teammates and people around the Browns organization came to Deshaun Watson's defense and said, you should never cheer for somebody that's, cheer for an injury. You should never cheer when somebody, suffers in any capacity. Like all this like moral discussion about what's the right thing to do in that situation. And then some members of the sports media world came out and said, that Deshaun Watson, hasn't been a great dude. Booing somebody when they get hurt isn't ideal, but it's not the end of the world. I took that a step further and had maybe a little bit of a different perspective on it. But I think in the case of the Browns and Deshaun Watson and his injury, number one, okay, when all Deshaun Watson's teammates and people around the organization came to his defense, when the Browns fans were booing him when he came on the field and then cheering when he got hurt with the season-ending injury, when all his teammates came to, Deshaun Watson had all his teammates coming to his defense. You don't cheer when a guy gets injured. That's not the right thing to do. This guy's out there putting his life on the line, and he's out there grinding just the same as the rest of us. And they took this like moral stance. And I talked about how that's such the wrong thing to do. It's so far down this weird path of defending some guy blindly because he's a teammate and he's a football player, when in all reality, Deshaun Watson is a garbage human being. Garbage, right? Trash. And then that's layer one. That secondary layer, that icing on top of him being a bad dude, is he's a terrible football player. He's seemingly gone from Houston, gets traded to Cleveland, signs a $240 or $230 million guaranteed contract, and forgets how to play football. And some say, no, the Browns are bad. No, the Browns have no weapon. No, the protection's not good. The last 7 games the Browns have played with a quarterback starting that wasn't Deshaun Watson. In those last 7 games, 6 of those games, the starting quarterback's thrown for over 300 yards. So, to summarize, Deshaun Watson goes down with an injury. His teammates come up to his defense and say, don't cheer when some guy gets injured and his season is over. It's not the right thing to do. Taking this weird, like, moral high ground when it's clear as day in plain sight. Deshaun Watson's not a good dude. Most people would cheer if any bad person doesn't get a positive outcome. Cheering for an injury, I get it. I understand that that's probably not the best thing to do. To know what the Browns have gone through with Deshaun Watson, as a guy off the field only, I can tell you it's understandable that they are fed up with what Deshaun Watson's brought to their organization off the field only. And that's the first layer of this cake. The second layer, the icing on top, is that Deshaun Watson on the field has been terrible. Absolutely terrible. Like, literally, statistically, I think bottom 3 are the worst quarterback in the NFL in terms of regular starters since he's been on the Browns. And he's getting $230 guaranteed. And then people say, no, that's not his fault either. Don't boo the guy when he gets, or don't cheer, right? Don't cheer when the guy gets injured. And then, you know what? On top of that, like, maybe don't boo him either. Like, it's not his fault. Like, people are saying, like, the Browns, man, they're just so bad. It's not all Deshaun's fault. The last 7 games the Browns have played with somebody besides Deshaun Watson starting at quarterback. In 6 of those games, the starting quarterback's thrown for over 300 yards, including Jameis Winston against the vaunted Baltimore Ravens defense and Lamar Jackson and the most dynamic offense on the other side of the ball. Jameis Winston, 334 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. If the Browns fans are going to cheer for a guy getting injured like Deshaun Watson did, you have to know 2 things. Number one, as fans, outside of unacceptable behavior and putting players at risk and in danger physically and also verbally, right, with assaulting them, throwing things at them, or anything racial and all those terrible things, unacceptable behavior by fans. But if fans want to boo, right, Deshaun Watson running out of the tunnel and they decide to boo him, they are well within their rights to do that. In my opinion, once they cheered for him after he got injured, that's a touchy gray area. I'm not going to tell them that's the wrong thing to do, and I can certainly understand where they're coming from, because Deshaun Watson on the Browns has been nothing but garbage overall. Off the field, on the field, hot, stinky garbage. Bad PR for the Browns overall. Every time the sports media world talks about the Browns, since Deshaun Watson's been there, it's been nothing but embarrassment and negative coverage. Off the field and on the field. And then all his teammates come to his defense and say, you don't boo a guy when he gets injured, or you don't cheer. All his teammates come to his defense. You don't cheer for a guy once he gets injured. That's not the right thing to do. This guy's been basically a stand-up citizen. Okay, wrong. And they're not just cheering because of the injury. They're cheering for the opportunity for somebody else to come in and do a better job on the field. And then they go and say, well, it's not all Deshaun's fault. He can't get the throws off because he's not protected properly and the guys aren't getting open. The last 7 games, the Browns have had somebody starting at quarterback besides Deshaun Watson. In 6 of those games, the starting quarterback's thrown for over 300 yards. Just this last week, the first game without Deshaun Watson, not only do the Browns win, but Jameis Winston throws for 334 and 3 touchdowns against the Baltimore Ravens. You want to know why the Browns fans were cheering when Deshaun Watson got hurt? That is why. Jameis Winston, night and day, different outcome, approach, mentality, and coverage for the Browns in the span of one singular week. Every interview you saw with Jameis Winston, positive and praising the Lord and not swearing and smile on his face, an amazing attitude. Was it super cheesy? For sure, right? No one's questioning that. Is Jameis a little cringe and a little bit extra? Maybe, in some people's opinion. Sure. Did he throw for 330 and 3 touchdowns and beat the Baltimore Ravens? Yes. Was there literally a single negative takeaway from what Jameis Winston did and what the Browns did last week against the Ravens? No, not one negative takeaway. Every single week Deshaun Watson's played for the Browns, it's been, wow, Deshaun Watson stinks. Wow, the Browns stink. Can you believe that contract? What an embarrassment for that organization. Oh, and by the way, another lady has come out and accused Deshaun Watson of misconduct off the field. And then 1 week later, Jameis Winston comes in, is nothing but positive, is, a little bit corny and cheesy, but basically exemplary when it comes to how he handled his interviews and his mindset and his approach and the way he led the team. Then he throws for 334 and 3 touchdowns, and the Browns beat the Ravens. So if you're wondering, Browns fans that came to Deshaun Watson's defense when they started cheering when he got hurt, if you're wondering why they were cheering, now you know. And it's not often, if ever, that I can actually remember a documented time that a home fan base cheered when one of their players got hurt. I'm not defending the behavior. I probably personally wouldn't do it, but I can understand where it's coming from. And I'm not going to be the guy that takes the moral high ground stance against that fan base, because if you go as far, any fan base as far as cheering one of your own guys at home when he gets injured, there's at least definitive, solid reasoning behind it. And then to go out a week later and do what the Browns did with Jameis Winston tells you everything you need to know. I wouldn't personally do what the Browns fans did with cheering about Deshaun Watson's injury. And even the people that weren't cheering, even the people that think it's the wrong thing, you can't tell me all of them in the back of their head were saying, can't be any worse than this at quarterback, right? I mean, whoever we bring in can't be any worse. So that's all I want to say, man. That's the Browns thing and situation. Are they going to go on this crazy run and win the Super Bowl? No. But Deshaun Watson is the problem. He is the problem. And then there's some guys around the NFL that are one or the other, right? There's some guys in the NFL that are problematic off the field, that are causing issues outside of the game of football, but then they come on the field and, they're productive, they're reasonable. It is what it is. And for fans of that team, it's like, oh man, this guy's kind of a scumbag off the field, but I mean, his numbers are decent. And then there's guys that are exemplary model citizens off the field. Their numbers on the field aren't great. And you're like, well, okay, this guy's just not good at football. But there's nothing else to complain about. There's no, obviously, he's not a problem to have on the team. He's not great. Maybe there's some more options to use in this particular spot and this guy and whatever. But Deshaun Watson is both. He's both. He is a scumbag off the field, and he's a horrible football player. And there's no defending either one at this point. The stuff he's come up with off the field. It's not, oh, a bunch of ladies got together and decided we're going to accuse Deshaun Watson of doing this to try to ruin his career. It's a bunch of accusations and a bunch of financially settled accusations. Because if Deshaun Watson was truthfully innocent, as is the case with myself and anybody else involved in that, it's not like Deshaun Watson didn't have and doesn't have the financial means to defend himself in the court of law. And if I felt that I was truthfully and honestly innocent of all these charges and that a bunch of ladies got together and decided we're going to take down this guy in his career, even though he's done nothing wrong, I would defend it with my life and with my honor, as would most people. I understand there's there's financial incentives to not pursue or not defend yourself legally because it's expensive. Deshaun Watson's got the money to do it. And even if you don't have the money, he can come out in the media with the platform he has and say, I didn't do these things. I promise you, I didn't do these things. I've been an amazing person my entire life. I have so many different references and people that would defend me forever, but he settles them all. Tells you right there what you need to know. And then on the field, his numbers are horrible. He's a horrible quarterback. He's simply forgotten how to play the game of football effectively. Oh, well, that could be the argument against is the Browns organization, and the Browns always ruin quarterbacks. The last 7 starts from a quarterback on the Browns not named Deshaun Watson. In 6 of those starts, that quarterback, whoever it was, has thrown for at least 300 yards. And I don't think Deshaun Watson's done that maybe once in 2 full seasons in Cleveland. Tells you everything you need to know. It's brutal, man.